Hi, this is Emily of Beauties and Headcanons. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Rachel Mullins, host of #NoFilterFriday here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my new show, #NoFilterFriday, where we talk about all of the sexual misconduct allegations swirling around Hollywood. A new show drops every Friday at 8:30 Pacific Standard Time. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you'll never miss an episode of #NoFilterFriday. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Throughout history, the course of sports has been shaped by one thing: the fans.
From the moments you never dreamed of,
Abby Wambach has saved the USA's life in this World Cup! Paul, the runner! Loose ball! It's good! Gonzaga! The flipper still fits!
To the moments that still give you nightmares.
Behind the bag! It gets through Buckner! Here comes Knight and the Mets win it! He's in! Patriots win the Super Bowl! Brady has his fifth!
through the good and the bad, fans have helped change the games we watch and the players we love.
They may not be the most logical people.
You are a factory of sadness! I'll see you Sunday.
But they know their teams better than anybody.
They'll blow in the ninth.
You may not always see them, but you know where to find them.
After all, there's nothing quite like the view from the cheap seats.
Broadcasting is part of the Public House Media Network.
Grab a chair and enjoy all there is in
The cheap seats.
Oh, yes. Welcome in once again to the Cheap Seats here on Public House Media on this Monday, June 25th, 2018. The week of free agency we're less than a week away from free agency in both the NBA and the NHL. On the 29th is when players in the NBA have to, if they have that option, they have the deadline till, and then starting on July 1st, unrestricted free agents in the NHL can decide to take their talents elsewhere should they choose to. We're going to break it all down here today on this Monday so that you are ready for what should be a fun and interesting week in the world of sports. I'm Christian Heimall. As usual, we're joined by John Lauder, but John's got some family stuff. He's on some vacation here. So back-to-back days, Jake Holmes and I, Jake had me on Friday, and now, Jake, we open up the doors to you here on Monday. How are you, bud?
Oh, not too bad. I couldn't be better. How are you, bud?
Wonderful. And so let's get into, obviously we're going to touch a lot on the NHL and the NBA coming up in the second half of the show, but there's some other stuff to get to. I want to do, though, first go back to our Friday, our bold predictions. So far, you and I haven't done a great job. I know on Friday you said one of your bold predictions was a lot of trades in the NHL draft. There weren't many on day one, although there was a big one with Brooks Orpik and Grubauer going to the Avalanche for a second-round pick.
Yeah, and the Avalanche actually bought out Brooks Orpik, making him an unrestricted free agent. Well, he cleared waivers, so he's got all the opportunity. Basically, that was a chance for the Colorado Avalanche to get a quality goaltender. They don't have one right now. Bernier's a solid guy, but truthfully, Semyon Varlamov just isn't. He's just not reliable. Injury prone, has been in trouble with the law. It just happens with him. So that was actually a really good trade. I like the Capitals dumping some salary. They took out almost $8 million off the books in order to sign John Carlson. It was a great trade, and it's going to help both teams down the stretch.
And they could even get Orpik back. So who knows? And then my bold predictions, I had two of them. I had one being that LeBron stays in Cleveland, which we still don't know yet, and that Kawhi Leonard will be wearing a Boston Celtics uniform by the end of this week. That one, who knows, because it seems like the Lakers are doing their best to hold on to Kawhi and fix that. So not doing so well on our bold predictions, but maybe we'll have some better luck as the week goes on. Let's get into some of the big headlines. Of course, tonight, I'm a huge college sports fan in general. Doesn't matter to me, and this is one of my favorite times of the year because it's the College World Series. It starts tonight. Oregon State and Arkansas. It's been a fun tournament. I don't know, Jake, how much you've been watching, but this Oregon State squad, they're not without controversy, obviously. Their stud pitcher, one of the best in the country, in Heimlich here, Luke Heimlich, didn't get drafted because of some legal issues for the second straight year, even though he's been the best pitcher in the country. Able to squeak by and defeat Mississippi State on Saturday to earn a trip to the national championship round and try to face Arkansas, who's looking for their first ever national title.
Yeah, and speaking of pitching, that's not going to be an easy task for either teams. Both teams are just hitting the crap out of the ball. Both teams overall as teams are hitting 330 in the tournament. It's going to be really fun. It's going to be really fun to watch, really, and really you can't go wrong with the conferences too. I mean, these are the two best baseball and softball conferences in the country, in the SEC and the Pac-12 going head to head. But yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. Speaking to your point with controversy, Luke Heimlich, he only went 2 1/3, I believe, in the opening round against North Carolina. They lost, very similar to what the softball national champions, and the Florida State Seminoles did. They lost in the first round, and ended up reigning victorious. We'll see if Oregon State does the same.
Yeah, Oregon State looking for their third national title. They won back-to-back in 2006 and 2007 with a notable guy you may have heard of. Jacoby Ellsbury was playing in the outfield there for the Beavers back then. But yeah, I mean, listen, this would be interesting. It would be the first time, if Oregon State wins, it would be the first time since the College World Series moved to TD Ameritrade that a team has lost their first game of the tournament and still won the national title. Meanwhile, for Arkansas, a team that knocked off the defending champs the other day and did so pretty convincingly. I know it was only 5-2, but did so convincingly. They're playing for the title for the first time in almost 40 years. 1979, the last time they were in the College World Series championship round, and looking for their first ever baseball championship. You don't think of Arkansas that much as a baseball power, especially in the SEC. You think more of Auburn and those guys, but this is a great story for them as well.
Oh, yeah, certainly. And Arkansas, as overall with sports, really has always kind of been almost a little brother to a lot of other teams, a lot of other schools in the SEC. So it's nice to see they're ranked 5th. I mean, that's a heck of a team over there. Caught fire late. And, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, ultimately, I think Oregon State's going to end up being the favorite going in. But yeah, we're going to see. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Definitely, and I'm excited for it. It's so funny. My Facebook memories the other day were reminding me of that Virginia-South Carolina championship game that we saw. I think it was in 2011. That championship series was so good, so exciting, and a lot of fun. So College World Series starting tonight. Hopefully you guys get a chance to watch it and enjoy it because it should be a lot of fun. A couple other things going on, some big headlines. This one kind of caught my eye. I was really surprised by this. I didn't know this was an actual thing. There's an article in the New York Times from Saturday that says the U.S. Open, we're talking tennis now, which will be coming up in just a little bit in New York, is going to revamp its seating to account for pregnancy leaves. Now, what this means, this is in response to Serena Williams at the French Open. Basically, what the United States Tennis Association is saying, that players should not be penalized for starting a family for pregnancy if they take time off because of that. They shouldn't have their rankings or their seedings dropped because they're not competing due to pregnancy, which, first off, I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't know that your seedings are... Serena Williams, the number 1 ranked player in the world, after she took time off for her pregnancy, she was dropped to 183rd and wasn't seeded at the French Open. She's the best player ever in the sport, and she wasn't even seeded at the French Open this past month.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. I saw that. We were doing some research for the show, and I was like, I didn't know that was I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
Like, and whenever you think about it, like Serena, I mean, she's the Mount Rushmore of
exactly
of really, I mean, tennis. She's on of the entire sport. Mm-hmm. So 23 Grand Slam titles, and she dropped to the 180s or whatever. And if it wasn't for a shoulder injury, she would have won the French Open. She would have destroyed Maria Sharapova, as she always does, and she would end up at winning that tournament. Just a few months relieved of having a child, and plus it brings in a different dynamic that you're punishing women for having a child for starting a family.
Exactly.
Are you kidding me? Come on.
That was the part that really surprised me. So under current Women's Tennis Association rules, players who have lost ranking slots after missing time, whether due to injury, pregnancy, or other reasons, do not have the benefit of a protected seating at tour events, making it more difficult for them to negotiate their way through the draw. So basically, because Serena was pregnant, because she went and had a child, she was given a tougher road to the championship, even though she was the number 1 ranked player in the world. And I don't want to try to compare this in a bad way, so I want to preface this by saying this may not be the best comparison there is, but I look at it in the sports of mixed martial arts. In the UFC, if a fighter can't defend their title because of injury, they don't lose their title. They don't have it stripped from them until it reaches a certain point. Then there's an interim fight, but that champion always gets that unification bout, that unification fight with the interim champion to see who actually has the title. So it's obviously, I know it's different in tennis. You can't exactly leave Serena as the French Open champion, and then if she can't compete like 3 months later, the person who won the French Open for a unification. I get that. What I'm saying is they don't lose their rankings because of an injury in boxing or in mixed martial arts. I was a little surprised to see that was allowed to be the case in tennis everywhere except Wimbledon. Wimbledon is the only Grand Slam major that takes into account other things outside of a player's rankings when they do their seeding.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess whenever it comes down to it, good for the UTSA for finally coming to this determination. I mean, it's 2018. I guess I guess that we know what what happens with this.
Right.
You know what I mean. It just a little bit overdue, but I mean, I guess good for them for righting the ship. But still, I mean, up until this point, I'm like, I saw that, I was floored, and I guess it would make sense that since Serena was 180th in the world before the French Open.
That's the insane part to me. She was the number 1 ranked player in the world, and because she wasn't competing for, what is it, I think 7-8 months from the time that she decided to go on, for lack of a better term, maternity leave. She had complications with her pregnancy and whatnot, and took time off. She dropped 182 spots because of that. That just doesn't sound fair in any stretch. She's the number 1 ranked player in the world. She's the sport. Like it's just unbelievable to me. It was definitely the fact that headline existed was a shock to me. So,
no, I completely agree with you, Christian. Yeah.
Moving on here, one last big headline to get to here, and this is one that's kind of interesting, and I can't really disagree at all with this. I don't know your thoughts, Jake, but Peyton Manning told the New Orleans Times-Picayune. Let's see, was asked about Drew Brees taking over the number 1 spot as the all-time passing yards leader in the NFL. And Peyton said this, quote, "I don't think it's a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. He deserves it. He's been a great player for a long time. Drew Brees is just about 1,500 yards shy of Manning's all-time record, which means he would probably break it, in September, potentially? October, the latest. Drew Brees, if he's got it, depending on how much they use their running game this year. Are you surprised at all to hear Peyton Manning say that Drew Brees deserves to break his record?
I don't think so. I mean, whenever you think about it, I mean, Drew Brees, what he's done in his career has been just absolutely sensational. I mean, he kind of fell off in San Diego, but I mean, New Orleans, I mean, he's easily been the Saints' best quarterback of, in their history. And, I mean, and he hasn't really done this with, all-world talent. I mean that with respect. You're a Hofstra grad, correct? Marcus Colston?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's really, I mean, him and Lance Moore, like, those were like the 2 best wide receivers that he's had, and he's literally done this pretty much by himself. I mean,
right.
And the thing is, also with Drew Brees, is that he's diminutive in stature. So it's a little bit tougher. And what that makes what he's done even more impressive to me is that he's not the 6'4" guy that you see most of the time. The guy might be 6 foot. So, I mean,
if that, he might be 5'10", let's be honest.
Yeah, exactly. Like what he's overcome in his career. Yeah, I think he's deserved it. And I'm not surprised that Peyton thinks the same.
This is going to be his 18th year in the league. He's going to have over 72,000 yards by the end of the season, you would think, which would be the all-time record. He's 51 touchdowns shy of the all-time touchdown mark of 539, tied with Brady at third right now. But, I mean, Brees has just been, I'll say this, there is no better role model in the NFL than Drew Brees, in my opinion. From the way he interacts with the community in New Orleans. And remember, this is the thing we forget about Drew Brees' career. It was deemed over by San Diego after that shoulder injury in the playoffs. They basically banished him to New Orleans. Katrina hits in that same offseason, and then he's able to help rebuild that city, bring them their only championship a couple of years later, and he's just an incredible human being, a great quarterback, and I agree with you. I'm not at all surprised that Peyton Manning thinks that he deserves the record.
No, and good point about what kind of person he is, because, I mean, family man, has done so much in the community, and he really was a part of the squad that really brought hope to New Orleans again. I mean, just only a few years, 5 years after, the Louisiana Superdome was used as shelter for people trying, for hurricane survivors. They were, they brought a Super Bowl to it. I mean, of course, the game wasn't there, but still, I mean, they brought the championship, and they had a championship team play in that only 5 years later. It's unbelievable. It was a great story, and yeah, I mean, if anybody deserves it, it's Drew Brees.
And I'll tell you right now, one of my favorite venues for an NFL game, from the pregame party all the way through, the Superdome takes the cake, man. It's awesome. Championship Square is a lot of fun. New Orleans is a fun town, but New Orleans on a football Sunday, when the Saints are at home, even better. So, got a lot more to get to here. When we return, we'll touch on the World Cup. England went nuts yesterday against Panama. We got some other teams that are squeaking by potentially into the knockout round. Group stage is almost complete. We'll touch on it all in just a little bit here. You're in the Cheap Seats on the Public House Media Network.
I'm the Greg.
And I am Dave Show.
We host the Greg and Dave Show on Public House Media.
Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out our show, The Greg and Dave Show, where we talk about strange, bizarre, and sometimes just downright quirky news stories that you may not have heard about.
A new show comes out every Wednesday. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes. And hey, thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Daniel Poppy, host of How to Write Good here on Public House Media. I just want to thank you for listening to the following broadcast, brought to you by Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope that you'll come check out my show, How to Write Good, the writing show that is not about writing. A new show of How to Write Good comes out every Wednesday, so don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of How to Write Good. Again, thanks for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Little ZZ Top, Sharp Dressed Man to get you started on this Monday. Going to be a lot of fun on this one, June 25th, 2018. I don't know if you're like me at all and you really appreciate Sharp Dressed Man, or if you're like some other people that I know who hear this song and think Duck Dynasty for whatever reason. But
I think of Guitar Hero 2. I think that's what I think of.
Yes, there you go. All right, I like it. Well, some sharp-dressed soccer players, or footballers, I guess, in Russia here as the group stages are coming to a close. Last couple games of the group stage coming up here over the next couple days in Russia. You've got some groups where it's already pretty much decided, others where it's kind of interesting here. The one that's really intriguing me, in Group E, Jake, you've got a game coming up, I believe, on Wednesday. Wednesday, it'll be, let's see, it'll be 9 o'clock local time in Russia, so probably like 11 a.m., 7 a.m. here in the U.S. Brazil and Serbia in Group E. And the reason why I find this one to be interesting, Brazil and Switzerland are tied atop the group right now with 4 points. Serbia, though, with a win, could potentially work their way. If they beat Brazil somehow, Serbia would qualify for the knockout round for the first time as an independent nation. And Serbia has played really, really well and really, really exciting in this World Cup.
That they have. They're fun team to watch. But then again, Brazil is one of the titans of the industry.
Yeah.
I mean, Brazil's really tough. But yeah, I mean that's an awesome story with Serbia. Having their first, potentially having their first. Advancement into the knockout phase as an independent nation, but yeah, I mean that's an interesting story coming for you on Wednesday.
Yeah, and truly, I haven't been that impressed with Brazil either, just because I mean that 1-1 draw with Switzerland was a little lackluster. They did come out and beat Costa Rica 2-0, but it's just one of those fun things. This is why the group stage is so much fun.
Yeah, I agree. In Switzerland, with their matchup against Costa Rica coming up this week, I mean that puts a little bit of extra pressure on Switzerland as well.
Oh, and definitely.
to finish off Costa Rica. Now they're going to be the heavy favorite going in there. Costa Rica two losses.
Haven't scored a goal yet.
Yeah, haven't scored a goal yet. But yeah, it does put a little extra pressure. Group E is going to be interesting going forward.
Which one do you see? What are you looking forward to here as we get into the final couple matches of the group play?
Well, really, I look at what happens with Mexico and as far as Group F, Mexico and Germany at the top. Now Mexico is going to get in, but they still have to take on Sweden. Germany with the Korea Republic. I'm no United States. I'm rooting for Germany. Got to go with the hereditary
Agreed.
bias.
Agreed.
But yeah, I mean Germany. They were the favorites coming in. They dropped that early one to Mexico. As far as Vegas odds, they were the favorite coming in. But yeah, extra pressure to go with them to beat Korea. They probably will, but still, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I believe that game's on Thursday.
Yeah. Yes, I believe so. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's insane to think that like Germany. So, and I was when they lost to Mexico in their opener. Germany was the 5th defending champion, I think, to lose their first matchup or to not win their first opener. 3 of those 5 failed to get out of the group stage. So it would be really interesting to see what happens here if Germany is unable to advance. If say somehow they draw with Korea and maybe Sweden somehow beats Mexico or Sweden forces a draw. Who knows? I mean, things could get really, really wonky, really, really quick there. There was a group that really on Sunday just went. One team just went absolutely nuts. England going up 6-1 over Panama, defeating them. And this is what's interesting. So I was watching this game, and throughout the broadcast, you heard little pieces here and there. Panama was the team that got into the World Cup because the U.S. failed to qualify. And a lot of people, the broadcasters were saying this, that game against England, that 6-1 loss to Panama, should really be a wake-up call and an embarrassment to the United States because they should have been in this World Cup instead of a team that scored its first goal ever in a World Cup with like 4 minutes left to play.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And whenever several months ago when the United States failed to qualify and Panama got in, I just thought. Of course, this is a different conversation, but all the resources that the United States has, and I mean those coming up for 2022, those guys, the 18Us are all really tough. So I mean, might be going in the right direction, but yeah, Panama. I mean, they got destroyed to England, and we don't really know what England is yet. At least I don't. That 2-1 win over Tunisia just a few days ago, and granted they did beat Panama 6-1 yesterday, but on Thursday we're going to find out what kind of team England is as they take on Belgium. But yeah, it really is an embarrassment whenever you think about Panama getting in, losing 6-1 to the English.
And that's the thing, you always look at it kind of when your team gets knocked out of a tournament, like in the NCAA tournament, like. When Virginia lost to UMBC and then UMBC goes and gets annihilated, like Virginia's got to feel bad. That like not only were they the first 1 seed to ever lose to a 16, but then that 16 seed got obliterated when Virginia probably could have won that next game. It just makes them feel that much worse. So, it's just one of those things. Whenever you lose and you struggle or you're not there, the team that is there because you're not makes life a little bit interesting, a little bit more difficult for you. So lots of fun in the World Cup. It's been a lot of fun. Harry Kane for England has been tremendous. So has Cristiano Ronaldo for Portugal. We talked about this a little bit, Jake, you and I, on Friday. Lionel Messi has been disappointing. Is that the best way to put it? Argentina has scored 1 goal this entire World Cup so far, and it came from Kun Aguero. Lionel Messi, of course, missing that penalty kick, which would have been forced a win. Argentina, unless they come up with something crazy, Argentina has to beat Nigeria coming up tomorrow. Have to beat Nigeria to be able to get in, and hope that Iceland, at best, draws with Croatia.
Yeah, the odds are stacked up against them. Croatia 2-0, 6 points overall, and of course we know Argentina dropped just dropped last week to Croatia. So, the odds are stacked up against Argentina, and this is almost like for those that don't really follow soccer, this would be almost like a LeBron James not making the playoffs. Really, whenever you think about it, because Argentina, it's not the most difficult. It's not the most difficult group, Croatia, Nigeria, Iceland, some solid squads. Mm-hmm. But Argentina, really, with the resources that they have, the players that they have, really, they should be headed to the knockout phase, even as the number two. So yeah, it's amazing. Quite frankly, they're not going to get in. They need the stars to align perfectly, and they're not going to get in. It's unbelievable. Whenever you think about Messi not getting out to the knockout phase, just 4 years removed from losing to Germany in the final.
In the championship, in the final, and like that's the thing. So Group D right now, as it sits, Croatia with 6 points, Nigeria with 3, Iceland and Argentina each with 1. Argentina is at the bottom of the group because of goal differential. They're -3. Iceland is -2. Argentina and Nigeria play tomorrow on the 26th, and Argentina, if they win, will get 4 points, or have 4 total points. So they'll get 3 points, and they'll be 4 points total. If somehow Iceland beats Croatia, Iceland would also have 4 points, and then you'd have Croatia, Iceland, and Argentina, Croatia advancing, Iceland and Argentina each with 4, and then it goes to goal differential. So really, if you're Argentina, you have to beat. You cannot draw with Nigeria. That doesn't get you in. You have to beat Nigeria and hope Iceland, at best, draws or loses to Croatia. That's the only way you get in. You need those two things to happen. If Iceland wins, unless you score more goals than Iceland does or have a better goal differential than Iceland does, you're not getting in.
Yeah, and even as far as the goal differential, it's very close. It's not like English where England when they had a 5 goal win.
Right.
So that's very close. You can't play with fire. It's going to be really tough for Argentina to get in.
Speaking of really close to try to get in, games going on currently today. You've got Spain and Morocco, as well as Iran and Portugal. Spain and Portugal need draws to confirm they're basically in. They're atop the group with 4 points each. Iran has 3 because of their stunning victory over Morocco late in their opener. Unless somehow Iran sneaks a win out over Portugal, it seems as though Spain and Portugal are going to advance out of Group B at least. But that would be the biggest shocker, is if Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi. You imagine that? Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi don't make it to the knockout round?
Oh my gosh! What kind of argument could soccer fans have after that one?
That would be unbelievable.
The Ronaldo fans, they're all like, "Oh yeah, we went to the knockout phase. You didn't." So it would be pretty wild for them both to not make it.
This would be pretty impressive and pretty insane to see what happens. So a lot of fun in group play going on. It's closing up in just a little bit, and then we'll have knockout stage, and that's where it really, really comes in, do or die, into the round of 16. In just a couple of days here. So hope you're enjoying the group stage. Hope you're enjoying the last little bits of the World Cup, as we certainly are. Some fun and exciting games to watch this week. All right, when we return, we'll get into the free agency world, NHL, NBA. Our poll question centers around 2 of the biggest superstars in both of their sports in terms of who is more likely to stay with their current team. We'll get into that, as well as some trade talk potentially, as well in both the NBA and the NHL. Our Mojo Mondays coming up at the end of the show. Also, don't forget about that. Head to our Facebook page The Cheap Seats by Public House Media. Subscribe, rate, review, share us with your friends and family on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, TuneIn Radio, Spreaker.com, Stitcher.com, iHeartRadio, and of course, thephmedia.com, where you can go and get some awesome show gear. Help support your favorite show. We know you love us, but show it to us as well. We don't want to just hear you say it. We want to see it. Actions speak louder than words. So head on to the store and check us out there. We'll be back in just a little bit. NBA free agency is coming up this Friday. We're going to get you all pumped up and ready for it next in the Cheap Seats.
Hi, this is Emily.
This is Lindsay. And this is Elizabeth,
co-hosts of Beauties and Headcanons here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Once you are done with this episode, we hope you'll come check out our show, Beauties and Headcanons, where we talk nerdy to you about fandoms, fan fiction, and all pop culture for nerds that you can think of. A new show comes out every Friday.
Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Beauties and Headcanons. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Kim Meyer, the host of Choose to Rise here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Choose to Rise, where we talk about living with positive mindsets, how to increase our confidence, building our faith, and living out our life on purpose. A new show comes out via podcast every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And if you want to catch the episode live instead, stop by Public House Media around 6:45 Central Standard Time, Monday, Wednesday, Friday as well. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you'll never miss an episode of Choose to Rise. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
The Cars, Just What I Needed. Well, I'm sure there are a lot of teams that are trying to serenade some free agents, hopefully in the next couple of days with songs like this. Just What I Needed. Might be true, you would think, right?
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, why wouldn't they? Yeah.
Just imagine standing outside these, can you imagine, Magic Johnson standing outside LeBron's house with a boombox playing Just What I Needed? That would be amazing. Or Lou Lamoriello standing outside of John Tavares' apartment on Long Island.
Oh, my gosh. I would pay money
awesome.
to see that.
Great. Although, you know what? Lou Lamoriello doesn't beg people. People beg Lou Lamoriello, let's be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
We're going to get into discussion on the NHL in just a little bit. Christian Heimall, Jake Holmes here with you guys in the Cheap Seats on this Monday, June 25th. We'll get to our poll question, and then we'll debate it later on. So let's just throw it out there right now. You can go vote on the Facebook page, Cheap Seats by Public House Media. Who is more likely to stay with their current team as free agency for both the NBA and the NHL enter in just a couple of days? LeBron James staying with the Cleveland Cavaliers or John Tavares heading back to the island with the New York Islanders? What is more likely to happen? Go and vote on our Facebook page, the Cheap Seats by Public House Media. We'll give you our thoughts in just a little bit. But, Jake, we'll start off in the NBA. Free agency starting later this week and in July. But LeBron James does have until the 29th. He has until Friday to tell the Cleveland Cavaliers if he plans on opting into his $35.6 million player option for this year.
Yeah, imagine really just debating for a week. Do I want this $35 million from the Cleveland Cavaliers, or don't I? Or do I want to go somewhere else? Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, LeBron, of course, is the best player in the world. We all know that. Yep. But does he want to stay there? Does he want to stay there another year and, bring in the dough and test the market next year? But I don't know. It's certainly interesting. Of course, the kids go to school in L.A. That's been one story, recently. But yeah, I mean, LeBron, I don't know how you feel about. I mean, yeah, I do know how you feel. You think he's going to stay, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's about 6 teams where you can make an argument. Yeah, this is why he'd go.
Right.
But I mean, really, do any of us really know what LeBron's thinking?
Nope, only LeBron does. But I thought it was interesting. Kobe Altman said after they drafted Colin Sexton on Thursday with the number 8 pick, said, "We continue to have good dialogue with his management team. I think LeBron has more than earned the right to approach his contracts the way he does. He's done that before, so this is nothing new to us. We want to respect his space during this process, and I continue to have really good dialogue with his management team as he goes through that process." I don't know what good dialogue means, but to me, I think he stays in Cleveland for a number of reasons. Really, 252 million reasons why, because that's what Cleveland can offer him if he decides, say he decides to opt out of this contract. He can sign a supermax deal worth $252 million over the next 5 years. I understand he can make his money wherever he wants, and if he goes to L.A., he can do, entertainment, advertising. He'll make his money millions, billions elsewhere. I understand that, but there's just something about, I don't know, there's something about $252 million from Cleveland that I just feel he stays there. And unless you know 100% that the Lakers are going to get Paul George too, who knows what happens?
Exactly. And I actually saw an article, I think it was Saturday, on if the Lakers don't land Paul George, and that pretty much throws everything out, because the only reason that LeBron would go to L.A., other than business reasons, is because to build a super team, they have the cap space, they have the resources, and they have the history to do so. But at 33 years old, LeBron, it doesn't look like he has a whole lot of time, to make another jump.
Dude,
but he doesn't
27.
play like it. Yeah, exactly. He doesn't look like it. He doesn't play like that. I mean, so I'm starting to lean towards what you think. At the end of the season, when they got swept out of Cleveland, literally by Golden State, I was thinking that's it. That's done. He's done there. He's done everything that he needs to do for the city. But now I'm starting to think, does he stay there for one more year, cash in on that $35 million, and then work it elsewhere? I don't know. It's very interesting, especially with the free agent market the way it is. Does he want to play with his buddy Chris Paul in Houston?
Right.
They're best friends. Does he want to join a super team in LA? We don't know.
Yeah, this is what's really interesting to me. There are the problem. Here's the one thing that makes me think he doesn't stay in Cleveland. Kevin Love, J.R. Smith, Kyle Korver, Tristan Thompson, they're all still under contract past this coming season. It's not like you can opt in for this $35.6 million and then try to bring in more free agents in 2019. You can't do that. Kevin Love has a player option for $25.6 million. He's going to take that. George Hill, Tristan Thompson, J.R. Smith are all $15 million or more in 2019-2020. Kyle Korver, $7.5 million in 2019, already signed, done, locked up for another 2 years. So he doesn't have much room to make a better team in Cleveland. But when you consider $252 million contract, you consider that you can make that money in advertising and entertainment anywhere with today's technology. And you consider the fact that if he wants to have the most money possible and go to another team, he'd have to do a sign and trade where he'd deplete the roster that he ends up going to. So there's just too much, in my opinion, that keeps him honestly in Cleveland. We have to wait till Friday at the latest to know 100%. But I just do think he stays in Cleveland for so many reasons. And I'm really shocked, though, that Cleveland took Colin Sexton at number 8. We talked about that on Friday. I don't think that was the right move for them. But what are you going to do? We'll see exactly what happens. Only LeBron knows what LeBron's going to do.
Yeah, exactly. And one other thing, to add on to the many reasons he could stay in Cleveland is that he loves it there. I mean, that's his home. He loves Cleveland. He really does. This isn't like, going to Miami where he had an opportunity to basically he compared it to going to college. He didn't go to college.
Right.
He had a couple years where he could go somewhere else and become who he has become today,
right,
which is actually an extraordinary human being as well as basketball player.
Yep. Well, one superstar staying where he currently is Carmelo Anthony, and I don't think that's a shocker to anybody. He opts in with his player option here. What is it, $24 million, I think, or $28 million for next season. 34 years old, giving up the opportunity to be a free agent. I don't think that's surprising to anybody because nobody else is going to pay Carmelo Anthony $20 million a year, let alone $28 million. Tremendous scorer, 19th overall all-time in points. But he is not the same guy that he was. And honestly, I think Carmelo signing, I don't know how to feel about it, but to me, Carmelo opting in this early, he knows something that we don't, and I think he knows that Paul George is leaving, and that makes Carmelo Anthony the number one scoring option again in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I didn't even think of it like that, because I saw that and I'm like, okay, he's got 1 year left on this deal. He's cashing in. Nobody's going to. My man, get the money while you can. You know, it's your money. Get your money. But yeah, that's interesting, because having Melo and Paul George in Oklahoma City last year, I thought kind of just killed them from the start. It's just too many scorers in one place. But yeah, that's a great point. I mean, Paul George, of course, he does, have that option, and it looks like he's going to exercise that at least, and test the market. But yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think of it that way, that he would be, the primary scorer with Russell Westbrook helping him.
Now listen, I could be completely wrong. It could mean that he knows that Paul George is going to stay, and that's his best chance to win in Oklahoma City with Paul George. So who knows? But to me, it just feels like, knowing Carmelo, because, and this is why I make the argument about a sign and trade with LeBron would not work. Carmelo did a sign and trade when he went to the Knicks, and the Knicks gave up so much to Denver just to get Carmelo, and it depleted that roster. Like, let me go back here real quick and look at this trade for Carmelo, because this was absolutely insane. Let's see. Okay, here we go. 2011. The deal was they send Wilson Chandler, Raymond Felton, Danilo Gallinari, and Timothy Mozgov, and a 2014 first-round pick. The Knicks got Carmelo, Chauncey Billups, Sheldon Williams, who was out of the league relatively quickly, Anthony Carter, who was, don't even know who that is, and Ronaldo Bachman, who I've never heard of. Like, they depleted the roster. Yes, he still had Amari Stoudemire. Yes, he still had Chauncey Billups to play with, but I mean, you got rid of Raymond Felton, who I believe is still in the league playing with Charlotte, if I remember correctly. I think. I may be wrong. Nope, he's in Oklahoma City now with him. So Danilo Gallinari, who has rebirthed his career for a couple of years, now with the Clippers, playing pretty well. Last year averaged 15 points a game, shooting 32% from three. And Timothy Mozgov, who just got traded for Dwight Howard, and is still playing in the league. Meanwhile, Carmelo had nothing with the Knicks there, and kind of depleted. And that 2014, who did the Nuggets draft in 2014?
That's what I was just thinking. I was trying to think of who that would have been.
That 2014 draft that 2014 draft became the 11th pick, and that was Doug McDermott, who, funny enough, got traded to New York for Carmelo from Oklahoma City. So, think of that what you will, but it just, that's my argument. Carmelo Anthony is my argument as to why a sign and trade does not work for LeBron James. That's my thing.
Yeah, no, and actually that Doug McDermott trade, Denver and Chicago, they had a trade. Doug McDermott went to Chicago. Yusuf Nurkic went to Denver. So yeah, it's even worse. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, Melo, honestly, good for him. But the thing with Melo also is that even in this time, he is unwilling to take a different role. Last year he was unwilling to come off the bench. He's got to understand he's not LeBron. I mean, I know he's the same age, but he's just not LeBron. There was a time where you could argue, he was the third best player in basketball, sure, but I mean, it's just he's got to just own up to his own ability at this point in time. Get that money, but also, kind of follow the law. I mean, if you're better coming off the bench in limited minutes, do whatever you can to help your team. That's the only thing.
So, and then as we talked about on Friday, real quick, there's still no news about Kawhi Leonard staying in San Antonio. It feels as though the Spurs are not willing to trade him, especially not to the Lakers, even though Kawhi has told people that's where he wants to go. And once his current contract is up next summer, he plans on signing with the Lakers. Although I did find this pretty interesting. On Saturday, Sam Amick of USA Today, Cavs inquired. This is a tweet from Sam Amick. In this piece, explored the Kawhi situation a bit. Cavs have inquired, I'm told, but no traction. Spurs telling West teams to pound salt. They will send him east, if anywhere at all. So it seems as though the Cavaliers are trying to find a way to get Kawhi Leonard up there. which, I mean, if you can get Kawhi, I think LeBron would consider staying.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know how this would work with the cap situation because I mean, you can't just bring in Kawhi. They're going to have to ship someone out.
Kawhi, if you're talking straight salary consideration, and I tried this before, ESPN has that trade tracker for the Celtics. You could it's literally Kyrie for Kawhi, straight up. It's almost the same exact contract. You're almost getting, you're not getting the same player, but you're getting, a better defensive player in Kawhi, a better scorer in Kyrie. Kyrie with a knee injury, who knows? But again, with the Cavaliers, if you're going from a straight salary standpoint, you got a number of guys that you could choose from. I'm not saying they're going to trade, Kawhi for J.R. Smith straight up. That would be stupid. But maybe, Tristan Thompson. They're the same age. Maybe you throw in Kyle Korver there too. Who knows? But the Cavs could make that work if they really wanted to.
Yeah, and I mean that would be a good way to keep him. I mean, of course, he'd be getting his money, at least for this year. Because personally, next year probably they're both going to LA next year, or at least Kawhi is. But yeah, I mean that would be a good way to keep him, for this year. Keep him for this year, and have one last run at a title where you're only 2 or 3 years removed from winning one, and bring another one back to Cleveland. Because I mean I'm a Pittsburgh guy, but I mean it was awesome seeing Cleveland win. Oh, yeah. Cleveland win after all those years of failures and everything like that. It was great to see them win, and really, I mean, LeBron deserves it. If he wants to stay in Cleveland, if he wants to stay home, he deserves to have his money and be on a team that can win a championship. Last year, that team stunk, but somehow, some way, they got to the final. But yeah, yep. Good point. Kawhi. If they could land Kawhi, that would be great.
Be awesome. See what happens. Free agency in the NBA opening up in just about a week. Same thing with the NHL. We are a week away from free agency. Already one guy who I've never booed an NHL player more than I'm going to boo this guy when he takes the ice for the Kings coming up this coming season. We'll touch on that as well as our poll question. Head to the Facebook page. Who's more likely to stay with their current squad, LeBron or John Tavares? We'll touch on that as well as our Mojo Monday close-up shop on this Monday, June 25th, 2018. You're in the cheap seats on the Public House Media Network.
This is Sam Kirby, host of Cinema Stories here on Public House Media. Thank you for tuning into the following broadcast here on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Cinema Stories, where we talk about movie and TV news and reviews, and maybe, just maybe, we'll learn a little something about ourselves. If not, then maybe I made you laugh a couple of times. I don't know. New episodes air bi-weekly on Tuesdays. Thanks again for checking out the totally spectacular following broadcast here on Public House Media.
How's it going, everybody? This is Keith.
And Katie, host of Coffee with Keith and Katie, here on Public House Media.
Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. When you're done here, I hope you'll check out our show, Coffee with Keith and Katie,
where we talk about our lives and relationship over a cup of coffee.
A new episode airs on Facebook Live every Monday and Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you'll never miss an episode of Coffee with Keith and Katie.
Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Yo, Vanilla, kick it one time, boy.
Yo, VIP, let's kick it.
Like 15 years, when you're telling your kids what were the 90s like, you're going to pull out this song. I don't know why, but there's something about Ice Ice Baby that is transcending generations.
It really is. It really is. One of my favorite Vanilla Ice moments, of course, this is the movie in me, is when he was cryogenically frozen in Austin Powers. I don't know if you've ever seen Austin Powers. But yeah, I mean, that's a 90s film. Vanilla Ice, Austin Powers, unfortunately, the most prominent names of the 90s.
That's going to be in our time capsule. That's way to go. You know what? Way to go, 90s kids. Nicely done. That's what we did. That's what we made happen. Awesome. You can't put in like Double Dare and Guts and those awesome stuff. You had to put in Vanilla Ice and Austin Powers. All right. Anyway, we got our Mojo Monday coming up in just a little bit. Christian Heimall, Jake Holmes here with you talking free agency. We touched on the NBA. We'll switch things over to the ice in the NHL. Our Facebook question, our poll question, by the way, you can head over to the Cheap Seats by Public House Media on Facebook. Who is more likely to stay with their current team, LeBron James with the Cleveland Cavaliers, who we just talked about, or Jake, John Tavares staying with the New York Islanders? He has said he's going to speak to some other teams, but it feels like maybe he should stay with the Islanders.
Yeah, I mean, what the Islanders have done over the last week, I'm telling you this. As if you're an Islanders fan, this is really the best week that you've had since 2013, when they made the playoffs. When they made the playoffs last, bring in Trotz, bring in Lou Lamoriello. You have an awesome draft that I'm going to be touching on a little bit later, but had an awesome draft. Everything seems to be going right for the New York Islanders, except for this John Tavares situation, in which on Saturday he told he informed the Islanders that he would be meeting with 5 teams, and I'm like, 5 teams? Literally, there's probably 29 or 30 other teams that want you. So, but why limit yourself to 5? But I mean, of those teams, probably the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Toronto Maple Leafs would be one. The Chicago Blackhawks could be another one. Tampa Bay is in there. But yeah, I mean, teams that have a lot of salary cap space. One that I look at is the San Jose Sharks, who have $18 million that at their disposal. So yeah, I mean, there's a few teams. They said 5. One that really kind of killed their vibe in the Tavares situation, which is terrible, is the LA Kings, who brought in Ilya Kovalchuk on just a ridiculous contract. But yeah, I mean, John Tavares, a lot of people forget about him because the Islanders aren't normally, a playoff team. The Metropolitan's so good, so that always hurts them. But I mean, they've had solid teams. But Tavares is so good. He's such a good hockey player. He's just one of the best skill and finesse guys in the league. Any team that can land him is on the money. And really, I mean, if he stays on Long Island, then I mean, who knows? Who knows what the Islanders can do with with their general management and everything, and coaching being restructured this year.
Yeah, it could be interesting. And so I saw this from Mark Fisher, the New York Daily News, late on Saturday night. The 5 teams supposedly that Tavares is going to talk to outside of the New York Islanders, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, which could you imagine him on that team? The San Jose Sharks, the Dallas Stars, Tampa Bay Lightning, and then his hometown Toronto Maple Leafs. So he's got some teams to really. I mean, Tampa Bay, San Jose, and Vegas, and Toronto for that matter, all playoff teams last year. Dallas as well, if I remember correctly. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Dallas finished 10th in the West. They were okay. Yeah, they were just out. They just
right
finished
there towards
out.
the end. So you've got all teams playoff contenders. You've got the Knights, obviously, who were in the Stanley Cup final. You got Tampa Bay, who just barely missed out and have been it's seemingly on the cusp, and they're just an offensive juggernaut to begin with. You add Tavares to that lineup, and that's just unnecessary. His hometown squad in Toronto, or the only place that he's known in the Islanders. So he's got some interesting choices here. It's going to be. As much as we talk about the summer of LeBron, it very well could be the summer of JT for hockey fans.
Yeah, and to the point of the teams that he could go to. If he joins Tampa Bay, I think that is a bad move by the Tampa Bay Lightning. Honestly, say that a team shouldn't sign John Tavares is kind of oh, Jake, what are you thinking? Everybody wants this guy. Tampa Bay's issue last year had nothing to do with scoring; it had to do with defense. They need some help with depth on the blue line. That's what they need help with, and they don't have a whole lot of room to spend. Only $10 million of cap space, and that's the same deal with Vegas. Scoring is not their issue. Speed isn't their issue. It's back line. It's the blue line. So I mean, those two teams, I'm not really quite sure. One team that I would love, I think the perfect fit for him would be either in San Jose or his hometown of Toronto, just because they need some help down the center, especially Toronto needs that help. All they have is Austin Matthews at the top. Tyler Bozak's going to test free agency. So they're going to lose a guy there. Nazem Kadri's normally suspended half the year. So, yeah, I mean, Toronto would be a good choice. San Jose, and really staying in New York and developing some of these younger guys, the Matthew Barzals of the league, helping in their development, I think would be great for Tavares. And he doesn't care about money. Tavares doesn't care about money. He wants to win, and I think that he could do that in any of those three places.
And having Lou Lamoriello and Barry Trotz there are certainly going to help. All right, one guy who's already signed a deal, and I was really fine just having this clown banished to Russia because of what he did to my New Jersey Devils. But Ilya Kovalchuk is back into the NHL, 3-year deal, annual average value $6.25 million. The only other team he was really negotiating with when he signed that insane and illegal 17-year contract with the Devils were the Kings, and now he's back there and actually playing. Hasn't been in the NHL since 2013, 35 years old, but was an absolute stud during the Winter Olympics and in the KHL last year.
Yeah, and really the thing is with that is it's not North American ice. You know, he's got more room to maneuver and things like that. And he's not fast anymore. He's kind of lost his legs. Yeah, he had a good year in the KHL. It's not the NHL. It's not North American ice, and it doesn't really have the talent that the NHL does. I think that it's going to be a disaster in Los Angeles. This is a team that had a hard time scoring before. Yeah, you bring in Ilya Kovalchuk, whose his job is to score. His job is to score goals. But it's not who he is anymore. They would have been much better off using some of the space that they have to help Anze Kopitar at least score. You know, and Kopitar's not a 100-point guy. He's the best defensive forward in the NHL. But LA needs help scoring. They only scored, I think, 2 goals in 4 games against Vegas in the first round of the final, or in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. So I think that was a terrible move by Los Angeles, who just continues to really make terrible moves, just a few years removed of making Stanley Cup finals. I mean, it's crazy how far down that they have, that both them and the Chicago Blackhawks, how many steps down that they've taken over the last couple of years.
Well, he said he wants to be like Pavel Datsyuk, who can win an Olympic gold, a world title, and a Stanley Cup title. So, you know, he's not going to get it in L.A., hopefully, in my opinion. Because
it's not going to happen at all.
Yeah, I really got upset with him. I didn't like that they put 15 years and $100 million on that deal, and then he just retires 3 years in to go play in the NHL. But whatever. So outside of Kovalchuk, who's now with the Kings, and Tavares, who's going to be kind of the talk of the summer in the NHL, Jake, what's the biggest name that you're looking at in free agency? Because I've been seeing, you got James Neal out there, you've got Paul Stastny, James Van Riemsdyk, Jay Beagle. There's a number of guys out there for teams to try to pick up here this summer.
Well, one guy that I think is an important piece because of just, these teams that have had, recent championship runs have had the elder statesmen come in and help them. Jumbo Joe Thornton's an unrestricted free agent. He's not going to return. He's not going to return to San Jose. But Rick Nash, I saw something about him, flirting with retirement. The guy that I really look at, other than John Tavares, of course, is Tyler Bozak. I mean, he's 32. He's a good second-line center, and a lot of teams in the NHL need this. And it's on the cheap. You can get him for probably, $4 million at most. But yeah, he's on the cheap. I think a team like Vegas would be good to go with him. Move Eric Howla down to a more natural role on the third or fourth line. Insert him to that second line between presumably Neal and David Perron. Of course, we don't know what's going on with James Neal, but ultimately, I think that Vegas will be smart to sign him. I think that, and they will. Another guy, John Carlson, who's an unrestricted free agent now. Washington's doing everything that they can. They made trades at the draft to keep him, get some more salary to keep him. He's going to be probably an $8-9 million man, and really he's one of the best defensemen in the league. So he would certainly deserve to be paid like Duncan Keith, who is no longer that. So John Carlson's one, Tyler Bozak, and Jumbo Joe. Those are three that I look at that are going to be really intriguing coming up.
Should be a lot of fun, again, as the free agency summer is about to begin in just a few days for both the NBA and the NHL. Don't forget to head to our poll question, head to our Facebook page, and vote on our poll question. And so, Jake, I'll get your answer here. Who is more likely to stay with their current team, LeBron James and the Cavaliers or John Tavares with the Islanders?
If you would have asked me that question 2 weeks ago, I would have said LeBron, but today I'm going, or I would have said John Tavares, but today I'm going to say LeBron James.
Yeah, I think they both end up staying personally, but if I had to choose between one or the other, I'm sticking with LeBron James personally. That's just me. So that's our poll question. Head over to the Facebook page. Again, the Cheap Seats by Public House Media. Let us know your thoughts on that, as well as anything else you're wondering. If you feel like asking us a question or just commenting on the show, go right ahead and do it. All right, Jake, as always here on the Monday show, we do this Mojo Monday, whether it's good mojo, bad mojo, for whoever it may be. We just throw it out there, see how some people are starting off their week on the right or wrong foot. Who do you got for your Mojo Monday?
Well, my first ever Mojo Monday. I'm going to be positive. I'm gonna bring positive vibes to your Monday morning. But I actually have two teams that just killed it at the NHL draft. The Detroit Red Wings being one, getting Philip Zadina at number 6. He was the number 3 rated prospect in the draft. And then Joe Veleno at number 30, who is the 15th ranked pick. Each one of them dropped over, twice as far as they should have. So really great job by the Detroit Red Wings, but especially the one, speaking of John Tavares, the one that really did a great job was the New York Islanders. Lou Lamoriello, his draft history is unbelievable anyways, but he gets two guys in the first round, back-to-back picks at 11 and 12. Oliver Wahlstrom, who draws comparisons to Alexander Ovechkin, and Noah Dobson, who's still about 2 years out, but there's comparisons to him to the likes of a John Carlson, an offensive defenseman. Also, in the second round, they picked up a guy that was projected to go in the top 20 in Bodie Wild. They got him at number 41. Unbelievable job by those two teams, especially the New York Islanders at the NHL draft last weekend.
All right, nicely done. I like starting off positively because I'm about to bring it all down with a negative, with some bad mojo. For a guy who many people are saying is going to be the first ever $400 million player in baseball. I'm sorry, when did batting .212 earn you $400 million? That's what Bryce Harper is doing so far this season. In the month of June, he's batting .149. Over the last week, he's batting .125. He has 10 hits. Just about 10 hits and 1 home run in the month of June. The St. Louis Cardinals pitching staff has 8 hits in the month of June. That is not a $400 million player. I'm sorry. I love Bryce Harper. He's an incredible talent. When he hits bombs, he hits absolute mammos, and he's going to be a lot of fun to watch in the home run derby. But this dude right now, his batting average has not gone up in almost 2 weeks. It is consistently dropped. He had one game where he was batting .209 entering the game and went up to .213. That was a little over a week ago. And since then, it has continuously dropped. He's batting .212. His on-base percentage is .353, and that is not those are not the numbers for a $400 million player. I love Bryce. I really do. I want him to be good, but Mike Trout, if Bryce Harper deserves $400 million, Mike Trout deserves everything. $30 billion is what Mike Trout is worth if Bryce Harper's $400 million player. So I hate being negative, but I just can't with Bryce Harper right now. He's playing too terribly to be considered a $400 million player.
I agree. He's been really bad. He's been really bad, and he shaved his beard off and cut his hair and all that, and that doesn't seem to be helping him. I don't know what's going on with Bryce. And the Nationals are hurting as well right now. I think they sit third in the division behind the Phillies and Braves, both teams that really shouldn't be on top of the Nationals.
The only reason Harper gets this much benefit is because he plays on the East Coast, while Mike Trout is sitting there over on the West Coast, kind of hidden.
Yeah, you're right.
Otherwise, Mike Trout would be the first $400 million player and be worth it. So that's going to do it for us here on this Monday. Jake, big thanks to you for hopping in on Monday, and we'll see you again coming up on Friday. You and Matt Coyne back together again coming up this Friday.
Reunited, and it feels so good. Thanks again, man, for everything this week. It's been awesome.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you, listeners, so much for joining us. As always, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spreaker.com, Stitcher.com, and, of course, thephmedia.com. Go and check out that website, thephmedia.com, to get some awesome Cheap Seats gear as well. Check out our Facebook page, The Cheap Seats by Public House Media. We'll see you next time in The Cheap Seats.